because I've always wanted to a forum where I could tell her publicly. She must reign on her officers. And that does not mean I'm attacking an independent office. We are criticizing. Ata yeye, if she has a problem with my office as cabinet secretary, she is at liberty to say it. So county governors, please do your part. I will do my part as the CS Treasury. And the controller of budget must do her part. And leave auditing to Auditor General. We cannot do, I cannot be the controller of budget and the Auditor General at the same time as I'm the CS Finance. Each one of us must play our role. If you ask me, I know counties even need more than 400 billion. The reason why National Treasury is asking to reduce that money is not because we are not appreciating that counties need more money. It is because of the financial challenges we have found ourselves in. On disbursement of funds, I want to be very categorical. I have committed myself that we will make sure that funds are transferred to the counties at the right time. This is because the moment counties don't receive money, it is costly to the country. Because you are borrowing money from commercial banks at inordinately high interest rates, at even 20%. It doesn't make sense. How do you even pay? Do you even have budgetary provisions to pay for these interest rates? It is putting a strain on the county, and it does not help National Treasury. I told my team at the National Treasury that the more we delay with county resources, it doesn't help us because we accumulate the transfers and it puts pressure on us. The problem that we have encountered from the beginning of the financial year was issues legal. There were two schools of thought. There was one school of thought that believed that we should not transfer even a shilling to the counties until the CARA is finally passed, both the National Assembly and the Senate. There was another school of thought that said that, and that is where I belong, that we can use the regulations to transfer at least 50% of the previous year's allocation, which is the 385 billion. So, because I wanted also to cover myself, I had to seek for legal opinion from the Attorney General. So I wrote to her. Fortunately, she agreed with my position, and we got a letter last week. And the moment we got a letter, we disbursed 1 month's allocation, which was 31.8 billion to the county's CRF account. And I promise you that before 15, we will make sure that we transfer another month. So that will leave us, because it appears we are not less than a month in arrears. I am committed to making sure that before December, we are up to date, so that counties can get back on their feet. I wish the controller of budget was here. I have a problem with her office. I don't miss my words. I say them as they are. Once we transfer the money to the counties, let that money reach the counties. There should be no bottlenecks. There is no reason why the governors, your officers, are always in Nairobi to clear with the controller of budget office. That is rent seeking. That should stop. We should have a system that clearly transfers money to counties. We don't need county governors, your CEC members coming here all the time. What are they doing which they can't use a phone call or email to sort out? You know, the moment that if we continue keeping to ourselves some of these frustrations, we will not be moving. When money is idle in the accounts, it doesn't help the country. It slows economic growth. I want our economic growth to go to 6%, 7%, not 5%. We had a slowed economic growth at 4.6%. It's affecting our economy because we can't even collect taxes. When the money is kept at the CRF, you are not even able to pay salary. We cannot get our pay as you earn. That is why you see the figures from KRA, they are not meeting their targets. Because money is kept there, someone is still asking questions that don't make sense. I am not saying controller of budget should not ask questions, but what stops those questions from being resolved quickly so that money is transferred to the counties? And why should county officers come all the way from Homa Bay, from Turkana to Nairobi? What is the justification? Are you calling them to come with envelopes? If that is the case, personally, I don't support that. Governors, I want to give you a challenge. It's a challenge that I'm giving governors. I know you have had a lot of difficulties in even managing the wage bill in your counties, especially those governors who are coming in the office for the first time. But I want to dissuade you from borrowing bad manners from national government. There are so many offices that you are just creating because they exist in national government. We should put pressure on the national government to disband those offices instead of replicating them at the counties. They make no sense, they are of no use, unnecessary number of advisors for border, advisors for fishermen or fishing community. They don't add value. They don't add value. Even in the national government, we have too many advisors which don't add value at all. You have line officers, technocrats, people who are, if they are not up to the task, they should be removed from office and then others take over their responsibilities instead of again replicating and creating the same position. So I would challenge you that you don't borrow these bad manners from the national government. Instead, you should help put pressure on the national government to leave their bad habits and employ prudent use of public resources. We must now look at each other in the eye and we tell each other the truth. Let us sit down and ask ourselves which are these functions that are still held at the national government level. We should go to the county and how much do they cost, so that we stop this circus of always fighting over how much should go to the county and how much should go to the national, remain at the national government level. Actually, we have ended up with a very subjective way of dividing our revenue, where we just sit and say, no, take 380, no, we want 400. It is based on what? I don't think it's based on any objectivity. This is a responsibility that was given to the transitional authority. I don't think they did a good job. Let us now sit down, both levels of government, look at the functions, see how much has been devolved to the counties, and ask ourselves, what are some of the functions that are still remaining with the national government? And how much do those functions cost? Can we move those functions to the county government and move them with the money so that this every year fight about division of revenue should stop? Governors, I want to give you a challenge. It's a challenge that I'm giving governors. I know you have had a lot of difficulties in even managing the wage bill in your counties, especially those governors who are coming in the office for the first time. But I want to dissuade you from borrowing bad manners from national government. There are so many offices that you are just creating because they exist in national government. We should put pressure on the national government to disband those offices instead of replicating them at the counties. They make no sense, they are of no use, unnecessary number of advisors for border, advisors for fishermen or fishing community. They don't add value. They don't add value. Even in the national government, we have too many advisors which don't add value at all. You have line officers, technocrats, people who are, if they are not up to the task, they should be removed from office and then others take over their responsibilities instead of again replicating and creating the same position. So I would challenge you that you don't borrow these bad manners from the national government. Instead, you should help put pressure on the national government to leave their bad habits and employ prudent use of public resources.
There is no mechanism. The law did not envisage that there'll be a shilling that belongs to counties that is not disbursed and transferred by the midnight of 30th of June of every year. Actually, it's unconstitutional. The Constitution did not envisage that. The Constitution did not provide a mechanism to roll over county money from one year to the other. And the subsidiary legislation, actually, PFM requires that by the 15th of the next month, the money relating to last month should have been released. But we see instances where money is rolling over to the next year. And we had that conversation with the controller yesterday. We see instances where a whole quarter ends before counties have accessed a shilling of money relating to that quarter, and then you read in the newspapers how counties spend zero on development. Actually, one of the legacies you can leave as a treasury is to actually create a directorate for devolution, or a directorate for dealing with county finance matters. Because financing counties is one of the biggest responsibilities that the National Treasury has. I think we deserve to have a dedicated Director General at National Treasury taking care of matters counties. Waziri, tafadhali, don't allow those people to radicalize you against devolution. And I say that because I saw the statement yesterday. It was all over the newspaper today about the 42 billion shilling that's sitting in county accounts. I wish the controller was here. That money was disbursed towards the end of September because there was this clarification that had to be made about whether money can be released to counties before Kara. And I met Waziri with the governor of Nairobi, and he was very cordial and receptive. And later on, the AG also concurred with the same position that we can actually release 50%. But that money, we are yet to access it. Because when you disburse money and release it into our respective CRFs, we go through another process of withdrawing that money to release it from the CRF, County Revenue Fund account, to an account from which we can use. And that money has to move to either a development account or an operational account. And it's a process. It's a process. So the controller also has to be facilitative and has to constantly relook at her processes. A lot of us have actually borrowed money to pay salaries for 3 months. So what interest will I have to have money sitting in the CRF when the bank is on my neck asking me to pay the money that I borrowed? But when a statement like that is made in the media, it gives the impression that governors are unable to utilize money they have, and they're asking for more. And they're borrowing, yet they can't use the one they have.
We understand the financial discussion that you have shared with us, the financial position of the country. But honestly speaking, I am hoping that at the end of the day, we can't have a figure below 385, the current, and over and above the statutory non-discretionary increment that will allow us to function, as it were. So I think even in that, let's, within that context of that discussion, really, having a discussion around 380 is very unfortunate because that is difficult. And we now have new programs that are generally national government-driven programs that we have accepted to partner as counties. And that brings in additional cost and additional responsibility. So I think, Waziri, as you do whatever discussion you're having, let's be absolutely honest on this aspect, that really, what is that bare minimum that we can deal with?
The Council of Governors, that he will right a lot of the wrongs that have been committed against devolution with respect to finances, and that on his watch, counties will not die being starved of funds through administrative fiat, by looking both at the quantum and the timely release. We've also discussed the financing for healthcare and what's the best way to try and address that gap in the financing, which is very clear. But we want to take a leap of faith and go full-fledged into implementation of UHC and deal with the problems as they arise. Not implementing it and not implementing it correctly is not an option. We will together struggle with the finances and ensure that UHC works for the Kenyan. After what happened with the finance bill, the DORA is being revisited. We have our view that DORA cannot be revisited. We have made our presentation to the Senate that we would not want to go down on the 400. Waziri has had us, and this is still being processed through the negotiation stages. We do hope and pray that it doesn't go below the 400, because we believe 400 itself was a bare minimum that we needed to operate. In spite of the challenges of funding, in spite of the challenges of not being able to see through the finance bill, we believe 20 billion is something that can be borne by the national executive and national government. And the multiplier effect that we'll have if it's released to the counties is much more.
We are looking largely on the issues around health, given the fact that there are reforms that the national government in terms of policy is coming up with. You know, there is now a new system, the health authority. And then we also have talked about the funding of SHA, as they call it, or SHIF, and the challenges that are likely to be faced in terms of funding, the transfer of funds to the counties, and the challenges that that this has been facing. And I've given my commitment. In the beginning of the year, we had challenges regarding the legal framework. You are aware that county allocation of revenue bill has not been passed. Yes, the DORA was passed, but there are now issues whether we should revisit it. As national government, we have proposed a revisit. The counties have a different opinion. But again, working together, these are issues that will be resolved by the two houses of parliament, because that is where the constitution placed the responsibility of resolving these issues on. So we have had challenges with that, but now we have cleared those legal challenges. And last week, we transferred 31.8 billion to counties, and that is the July allocation. The law is clear that you should be transferring the previous month's allocation before or on the 15th of the succeeding month. So where we are today, actually progressing towards 15th October, it means we are in arrears of August and September. The September one has not fallen due, but the August one has fallen due. I have given my commitment that before that 15th, we'll make sure that the August one is transferred to counties. And before the end of the year, we want to regularize and be up to date. Because if you don't give money to counties, the problem, the risk you run into is that the counties will now start borrowing from commercial banks, which is charging exorbitantly high interest rates, upwards of even 20%. We cannot sustain that as a country and as an economy. So that also we have talked about. But finally, I've personally spoken to the delays. The moment we release money to the county revenue fund, CRF, we expect that that money is absorbed. Because if it is not absorbed, then it poses a challenge to the economy. Money lying idle anywhere is not very good for the economy. We collect our money and release it every week. Every Thursday we disburse funds. So, but the county governments are facing challenges of some bottlenecks, which I think the controller of budget must address. There is no reason at all why we cannot have a system where the county CECs don't come to Nairobi to follow their disbursements. It is untidy, it is not wise, and so something must be done to improve that system. The moment you delay in disbursing money to the counties must function. They have salaries to pay. They have they may delay implementing development projects, but they can't delay recurrent expenditure. So what they will be forced to go to the commercial banks and borrow. And they don't even have a budget for the interest on borrowed funds. Because what we plan is to have money transferred to the county to meet expenses. That is what the budget with. You cannot overtax people. So what you do is to make sure that you seal all the leakages, all the loopholes in the system, and we know that loophole exists. There are leakages in our revenue collection. That is what we are working on, and we are working on a new system at the KRA to seal that.
Which is the official one? The one in the middle. Oh, this one. Thank you. Thank you. So was it? Yes. Thank you. If we can the next I'm going to get to office. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.